Okay, ready. So first of all, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Misael. Good morning, who was over here, Jesus, and also Anel. Thank you. Could you please write your complete name over here? Thank you for being here at time at 9 o'clock. I was just waiting for you. Waiting 10 more minutes before it was 9 and 10 to start our class. Thank you. Write your complete name. Thank you to take list. Okay, so I'm gonna start sharing the screen with you because we're gonna start our class. So today we're gonna have a different dynamic because also I don't know if you saw in platform I attached an exercise like an exam, but it's not an exam. It's an exercise, but we are going to work on it during the class. Okay, it's not an exam. It's an exercise that I let you over there and we will have this exercise during this class. Okay, so I'm gonna start sharing the screen with you. So also you can find this online session over here in YouTube. We are online too, because if you lost your connection or something, you can follow the class over here. So I do two online sessions at the same time because you can watch it over there too, right? So we're gonna start talking during this class with the last topic of our session, right? Today we're gonna work with the last topic of our session that belongs for relative clauses and also relative pronouns. So I'm gonna start talking about it. I'm gonna show you the presentation that belongs of relative pronouns. They are relative clauses, and this one is opening. During the week, I already talked about it. I already talked about relative clauses, but today it is important that we talk and we analyze how does it work. So this one are called defining relative clauses because we are talking about something specific. During this semester and during this last topic or this grammar topic, we are gonna work just with 3 relative clauses. It exists a lot of relative clauses, but during this semester we are going to work just with who, just with which, and just with that. Okay, it's important to analyze that it exists a lot of relative clauses, but during this semester or during this class and also during this unit, we are going just to work with who, with which, and with what. Just that. Okay? So first of all, what is the function of relative clauses or relative pronouns? The function of relative clauses are join two sentences in just one sentence, okay? But avoiding the repetition. When we use relative clauses and relative pronouns, we are going to join two sentences, but instead just in one. So we are going to avoid the repetition. When we are talking about relative clauses, we are not going to repeat who is the subject or the object of my sentence. Okay? As example over here it says, I told you about the woman who lives next the door. What is the subject that we are avoiding to repeat? Could you please tell me? What is the subject that we are avoiding to repeat? What who is replacing? Could you please tell me? The woman. Perfect. So, when we use relative clauses, we are avoiding to repeat the subject. Okay? So that means that instead of having one sentence in one moment, we have two sentences. As example, I told you about the woman and the woman lives next the door. So instead of repeating the woman, we use a relative clause who to make reference to the woman, okay? So over here in relative clauses, we can write it most of the time in the middle of my sentence. So in that form, we can join the two sentences in one. So how does the relative pronouns works? Who make reference to people. Who is specifically to talk about people. Which is specifically for things. And that can works for people and can works also for things. So you can use who or you can use that, and that's correct. Or you can use which or you can use that, and also it's correct. It is important to understand that who is specifically for people, which is specifically for things, while that is specifically for people but also for things. And over here we can see some examples. My sister, who was born overseas, likes to travel. That means that we have two sentences, but we join those two sentences in one to make reference to my sister. That means that once in a time I had my sister was born overseas and my sister likes to travel. Instead of repeating my sister, I use the relative pronoun who. So I can join those two sentences in one. Also, the window which is on the right is open. That means that once in time, I have over here the window is on the right and the window is open. So I had two sentences and I join it in one using the relative clause and the relative pronoun which. Over here, this is the house that Jack built. That means that I had, that is the house that Jack built, and also the house who, I don't know, who Jack built as example, right? I joined those two sentences just in one using the correct relative pronoun. The book which I bought is very interesting. Maybe I can add in a time I bought a book and the book is very interesting. So I joined two sentences instead of repeating the book, and I had the relative clause which. As I told you, it exists also whom, whose, where, I don't know what, whatever. But in this class, during this unit, we are going just to work with which, with that, and with who. That's it. Denzel Washington is the actor who I like the most. Maybe I like Denzel Washington, and the actor that I like the most is Denzel Washington. So I join those two sentences just in one, and I use the relative clause who, right? So the relative clause can help us to give information about person or a thing, to do a report speech, and also to express a regret. So that means that instead of repeating the elements, I had these relative clauses to join those two sentences in one, and it can help us to have an expression, right? Over here, we have like a chart, and it said that the relative clauses give information about who or what you are talking about. So over here, it's important to understand that we can make reference to subject and to object. I won't explain this one because it's kind of more difficult about it, but it's important to understand that for people, I have who and that, and for things, I have that and which. That's it, okay? And over here, we have some examples of using who or using that. I have also who, that, and also which, and how does it work, okay? Till here, is it okay for you? Do you have any question about the relative clauses? Hello, Yanela. Thank you for being here. Is it okay for you? How does the relative clauses work? Question till here? Okay, thank you. Is it okay for you, for the rest of the group? Okay. Now, I let you a homework. I received most of the homework by email, so that's okay. But we are going to check the answers. If you didn't work on the homework, we have time to do it during this moment, and let's check the answers and the possible answers that we can have. So I will open over here the relative clauses. And it says, add the phrase in brackets to sentence using that, who, or which. So as we said, that can work for people and also for things. Who is specifically for people and which is specifically for things. So, and we are going to work in a relative clause. So over here it says that she worked for a man and the man used to be an athlete, which is the element that is repeated in the sentence number 1, which is the subject that I try to avoid. Don't worry, that's okay. Thank you, yes, good morning. The man. So the man is a subject or an object? Man is a subject or object? Subject, perfect. So if I have subject, I can use which relative pronouns? Which option do I have? Who, perfect. But also I can use that, right? Because that also works for subject. So the possible answers that I could have over here is she worked, for a man who used to be an athlete. Or maybe she worked for a man that used to be an athlete. I can repeat man because I had the relative clauses. So if I had it, I am not going to use it, okay? This one can work or can help me to avoid repeating the man. Who and that make reference to the man. Is it okay with the number 1? Yes, number 1, is it okay for you? Perfect. Okay. Number 2. It says, I sent an email to my brother and my brother lives in Australia, which is the element that is repeated in my sentence. Which is the element that I am trying to avoid to repeat in the sentence number 2. Brother, perfect, and brother is a subject. So I can use who or I can use that, right? So in the number 2, I can have I sent an email to my brother that lives in Australia, or I sent an email to my brother who lives in Australia. And this clause can help me to avoid the repetition of my subject that it's my brother. So I won't use my brother again because these elements can help me to join two sentences in one using the correct relative pronoun. Number 3, it says they live in a city and the city is in the north of England, which is the element that is repeated in my sentence number 3. Sentence number 3. Guys, sentence number 3, what do you think that it's the element repeated? It says they live in a city. The city is in the north of England. Which is the element that is repeated in my sentence? I think that, thank you, the city, because I didn't scroll over here. The city. So the city, it's an object or a subject? Thank you. It's an object. It's not a subject. So in the case of object, which relative clauses can I use? In the case of object, which relative? Perfect. Which or that? Perfect. So the possible sentence that I can have, it could be they live in a city which is in the north of England. Or maybe they live in a city that is in the north of England. It could be my possible answer. So I can have over here which, or I can have that. So these elements can help me to replace the city and avoid repeating the element. Okay, so I can use both, and that's correct. The number 4, it says the girl works in a bank and the girl is from India. So how do you think it's going to be, or which is the element that I am trying to repeat to avoid repeating? Girl. Perfect. In the case of girl, it's a subject or object? Subject. Perfect. So I can use, as we said, who or that, right? So the possible answers that I can have over here, it could be the girl who works in a bank is from India, or the girl that works in a bank is from India. I can structure my sentence in different forms, right? But over here, it can help me to join the two elements and avoiding repeated, right? The girl. Till here, is it okay for you? Question still here? Is it clear? I think that it's easy, no? Okay, perfect. That's good. Now the next one. It says, the money is in the kitchen and the money belongs to John. So the element that I am trying to avoid repeating is what? The money. So the money is a subject or object? Object. Perfect. So the possible answers will be the money that is in the kitchen, belongs to John. The money which is in the kitchen belongs to John. If you have different answers, you can tell me and we can check if it is correct or not. Okay, because I already, as I told you, received the homework, but we can check today, right? Number 6, it says the television was stolen and the television was bought 20 years ago. So which is the element that is repeated in my sentence? The television, right? So we can have the television that was stolen was bought 20 years ago. Or maybe the television, it was, over here it's television, it's not television with accent. Sorry. The television which was stolen was bought 20 years ago. And over here we can identify the relative pronoun that help me to join the sentence, right? Number 7. The fruit is on the table and the fruit isn't fresh. So which is the element that I am going to join, avoiding the repetition? The fruit. Perfect. And as we know, fruit, it's not a subject, it's an object. So the possible answers that I can have, it could be the fruit that is on the table. Sorry, this one on the table isn't fresh, or maybe the fruit which is on the table isn't fresh, right? Over here it's using isn't. And these elements can help me to join the sentence, right? Till here, is it okay? Questions still here? Something? Do you have the same answers? Do you have different answers? I already received, as I told you, the homework. But if you did it and you had the different answers, could you please tell me? Do you have the same one? Okay, perfect. Now let's continue. So let's continue with the next exercise. And it says, my sister has 3 children. My sister lives in Australia. So the element that I am trying to avoid repeating is my sister. So I am going to join 2 sentences in one using the relative clauses. So I can have my sister who has 3 children lives in Australia. Or my sister. Also, I can have my sister who lives in Australia has 3 children. And that's okay. So I can switch elements and that's correct. Also, my sister that, as I told you, lives in Australia has 3 children. And that's correct. So following the order, it's okay if we write first the sentence that we join and then the other sentence. Also, that's correct. The only thing that it's incorrect is that we repeat the element or that we use again the element that we are trying to use, right? Let's check if you have any question. That's okay. Now let's continue. She loves books and the books have happy ending. So the elements that is repeated, obviously over here, it's the book. So the possible answers that we can have in number 9, it's that she loves the books that have happy endings, or she loves the books which have happy endings, and that's correct too. Okay. So this element can help me, and also this element can help me too. And finally, it says that the man is in the garden and the man is wearing a blue jumper. So obviously over here we are trying to avoid the repetition of the man. So I am going to use as a subject who or that. So the man who is in the garden is wearing a blue jumper, or the man, that is in the garden is wearing a blue jumper. Okay. Also, I can say the man that is wearing a blue jumper is in the garden. So I can switch the elements, right, as I told you. But the most important is that we are joining two sentences using the relative clauses according to my sentence. So till here, do you have any question about relative clauses and relative pronouns? How does it work? Okay. Is it okay for you? Now, we are going to pass, could you please open Territorio platform? And over here in the part of exams, as I told you, it's not an exam. It's an exercise that belongs for today, and it says ver examen. Could you please write over there and ver examen, and then there click over here. Obviously, I can check over here the result because I can check the exam because I did exam, but it's not an exam. I told you it's not an exam, it's an exercise. We are going to work with this in the following minutes. Could you please start working on it? We are not closing the session. No vamos a cerrar la sesión. Could you please go to the part of relative pronouns to the exams? I think it's gonna take you 10 minutes around to do it. Could you please work on it? Pueden por favor trabajar en esta parte. Let's go to territorio. So get back. In the part of exams, I'm gonna be here, don't worry. In the part of the exams. And then it said relative pronoun who, which. Could you please click over there to start working? And when you finish, could you please write here that you finish? It's an exercise, it's not an exam, so don't worry that I've done a study or something like that because it's an exercise. It's your participation of today. El día de hoy no tendremos foro porque vamos a estar trabajando con ese ejercicio, ¿de acuerdo? Para que no se preocupen el día de hoy por foro. Esa va a ser nuestra participación correspondiente. Había un foro ahí que voy a quitar para que ustedes estén tranquilos con la participación. Una vez que terminen, pudieran por favor notificarme sobre este ejercicio. No les toma mucho tiempo, es un ejercicio cortito, aunque diga en la parte de exams, es un exercise, no es un examen, ¿ok? Para que no se preocupen que si estudié o no estudié. Okay, thank you, Melina. So I will let you over there in some minutes in the platform the classwork, okay? Ahorita les dejo, nada más denme 2-3 minutitos en la parte para que se publique, porque pues está en la parte de foro como classwork, los ejercicios correspondientes, ¿sale? So you can close this session and just check the classwork that we are going to work, okay? Porque está habilitado a las 9:50, entonces yo ahorita se los escribo. Okay, thank you, Jocelyn. So you can go to and just check the classwork, okay, in some minutes. Como está habilitado a las 9:50, que eran los 10 minutos de sesión de el ejercicio, ahorita lo van a ver publicado, okay? Thank you. You can go, Melina and Jocelyn too. So just check in classwork. Just check in the platform in some minutes. Nada más revisen ahorita en unos minutitos más la sesión por el día, por el momento. Nos vemos hasta las 11, ¿sale? Thank you to you. Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. So see you in the next class. 9:50 aproximadamente, 9:50. Van a haber publicado el classwork, que es lo que vamos a trabajar, porque les dejé 10 minutitos para este ejercicio. ¿Ok? Thank you, Jesus. See you. Thank you, Claudia. See you at 11. Okay? Return at 11, please. Okay, head over here, Melina, Jesus, Jocelyn, Claudia. Okay, perfect. Okay, Monse, thank you. So you will see the classwork in some minutes in the platform, okay? So you can go. Thank you.